Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
We have an incredible panel, so I don't want to take any time. You all know me. Did any of you watch an NBC interview yesterday? Okay, great. What I wanted to say was that I was nervous in the beginning, like many of you are, sometimes nervous. But I really felt like I channeled all of you, and I was representing all of you, so I had to do a good job. So that was really important to me. All right, so our panelists, if you would walk up to the stage. Lisa, Tanya, Sonali, Monty, find a spot. So big round of applause for our panelists here. Welcome, and thank you for taking the time and being here. All of you have been a great support to the program for years. Your companies have supported our women-run returnships, and I feel like you're really, when you talk about be the change that you wish to see in the world, that's right here. So I want to start with asking each of you to introduce yourself, the company you work for, the role you play, and why is helping or supporting women going back to work or return to work important to you personally as well as for work?
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Meadows. I am the Senior Manager and Executive Talent Engagement Partner, that's a lot, for Pfizer. And I've been in this space for many, many, many years. But to answer your question specifically, I get a tremendous amount of pride in being an advocate for women whose voices are not heard because they're not in the room. And so being an advocate, a catalyst for us to talk about why it's important and the fact that each and every one of you, just because you've been out of the workforce, doesn't mean that you don't have value. So being in the position that I've been in has allowed me to really drive that home, sometimes a little harder than others, but I make the point. So that's me.
So, hi everyone. I'm Sonali Natarajan, and I work at Cisco Systems. I run operations. I'm the VP of operations in our incubation business group. And, I've been at Cisco a while, and I'll tell you, the reason I've stuck around is because Cisco is just such an amazing employer. And its mission and vision statement says it all. It says, to build an inclusive future for all. And that kind of resonates with me so much at so many different levels. And through my career, I've had the opportunity to grow at Cisco because of the culture that it actually practices, not just preaches. So for me, I've seen my growth. I came in as a returner myself, not as an official returner. At that time, we didn't have women back to work. But I'd taken some time out as well to raise my family, and I re-entered the workforce. And at the time, there was no such program that was organized like Akraya's Women Back to Work. And it was hard to get back into the workforce. But I did, and I had an amazing journey. I'm 27 years in, and still happy and still smiling, because it is a company that truly believes in its employees' growth and development. So at Cisco, we have like 31 communities, I believe, and Sarah can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the number. We have multiple employee resource groups. We have women in tech, for example, women in AI, and we foster a group for disabilities, people with disabilities, or different ethnic ethnicities or sexual orientation. We have groups that really help develop and engage everybody at Cisco. And so for me, when I heard, this was like about almost 10 years ago, I heard about the Women Back to Work program and got an opportunity to sort of lean in and help bring that into Cisco and champion it. That's kind of what I was most excited to do, because my growth has also been through, I think it was spoken about before, through mentors, through sponsorship and advocacy, and this was a great program that came into our purview at Cisco. So, yeah.
And hello, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. I'm Tanya Shastri. I'm a Senior Vice President of Product Management at Palo Alto Networks. And Palo Alto Networks is a leading cybersecurity company. Our mission is to protect the digital way of life. Essentially, we're all getting more reliant on digital technologies, so that mission just becomes increasingly important. It's a company where we have to innovate very quickly, because we have to out-innovate bad actors, stay ahead of them, and we have to think about problems quite holistically. Essentially, if we have a blind spot, it can be quite expensive, very risky. And to think about things holistically, we really have to have a very diverse perspective. It has to be reflected in the diverse experiences of people who are in the company and well-rounded teams. So essentially, it is very imperative for us to have that diversity to be able to deliver on our mission. And personally, for myself, my mother was a returner. I think she did probably some of the best work in her life when she came back in the space of education and positively impacted a lot of young people. I'd say more recently, I myself was able to take some time off in a leave of absence to take care of my mother when she had Parkinson's disease. I know how much I grew during that time. I know how all those experiences and growth from that period of time really are what I use today at work. And I hope that, more people are able to bring that kind of a diverse perspective to the workforce. So I'm very happy to be here today.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just going to start off with, and the elephant in the room, it's very intimidating being the only man here in a sea of women.
Don't worry, you're okay.
No tough questions, please. I haven't walked a day in your shoes, so. My name is Monty. I work for Infoblox, a technology company here in Santa Clara. I run talent acquisition for us. And for me, similar to your stories, my family, my wife has had 3 different breaks in her career. One was for raising our children, one was for starting her own business, and one was for a sabbatical. So, and I was supportive in all those scenarios there. But what really, for me, makes it personal for the returnship is due to my role. I run talent acquisition, do all of our hiring, and run a team of recruiters. And I have the ability to make a difference and create those opportunities that a lot of people are looking for. So I'm a champion for our current returnship, and I have the ability to influence our recruiting team and our hiring managers to skip over those resumes that have a break in it. So I'm really rooting for our first cohort to be very successful so I can champion it for future cohorts. So.
Thank you, all of you. Sonali, my question is to you. You talked a little bit about Cisco's support to the program. Cisco implemented the first returnship, which is our first returnship, and I can tell you that we learned a lot implementing that returnship, and thanks to you, Sonali, also. Hired 14 returners, 11 were converted to full-time. So obviously there was a great support, but if you can share some more about Cisco supported years of support to women and returners in the community. Why is that? And if you can share some more insights, and what do you see inside Cisco?
So, like I mentioned earlier, I think really the culture at Cisco is to hire individuals and employees who, of course, have the right skills and talent, but also a diverse, broad employee base, because Tanya just said, it brings in a diverse perspective, brings in innovation. So truly, we walk the talk at Cisco, which is why, you have several folks here who will attest to the fact that it is, our people culture is such that you bring people in from diverse perspectives. So our hiring methods are also set up to deliberately hire for diversity, and specifically for women in engineering, because we see that there is a disparity in that, between the male and the female population in engineering. So, so within Cisco, I think the intent is sincere, and so when women, so to answer your question is how do we see this from the inside? We've seen a lot of success stories, and I'm hoping you get to hear about some of those through the rest of the day. But I myself hired returners, and they bring such a great motivated mindset. And in addition to the talent, but they bring the best attitude, mindset to learn, a growth mindset. So that adds a lot of value, and the initiative that they take, they like to be, they can deal with discomfort and come in and not take anything for granted. So those qualities in the talent pool that comes in through the Women Back to Work program is just amazing. Yeah.
And very valuable, too.
Very valuable.
Absolutely. Lisa, you are a champion of women and people of color who are often marginalized in corporate settings. You also led Pfizer's inaugural returnship, and you were very determined to make this happen. Can you share some of the success from that particular program, and what made the program different or stand out from any other programs that Pfizer runs internally?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So we kicked off the Women Returnship program. Well, I'm a woman. I know lots of women who have left the workforce for various reasons, so it was certainly very personal to me to be able to bring this to Pfizer. And because of my commitment and my passion about the program itself and what you do each and every day, because this isn't just a fluke thing, this is a continuous effort that takes place, we were able to very successfully actually hire 10 returners in a matter of 7 months. And we hired them in areas that are pretty remote. They're not in California. So one of those areas was Rocky Mount, North Carolina. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. I certainly didn't before I worked for Pfizer. Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Kalamazoo, Michigan, and Rochester, Michigan. So those are 3 areas that I remember in our initial conversations, I said to you, we're not hiring in metropolis places. We're hiring in places that are outside of the beaten path. And just your commitment and your team's commitment to saying, we can do this. We have a vast network. We will find the people and bring them these opportunities. Just said to me, we're going to do this. And we did it. We did it very, very successfully. I led the internal program itself. And one of the things that really made it successful was as we talked with the hiring managers for the different positions we were hiring for, each of them really said how much this meant to them, because they either were returners themselves or had family members or friends who had been out of a job. And the fact that Pfizer is committed to bringing women back into the workforce really meant a lot to them. And so that was really energizing, and I know that that contributed to the success, because it's natural for hiring managers to have a default of their bias of, I'm looking for someone who's currently doing exactly what I'm doing. But these hiring managers really paused and were able to recognize their biases, put them aside for the greater good of hiring women returning to work. And once we were able to start showing them the resumes, the qualifications, they were like, wow, this is amazing. And after hiring 10 women, just the success that they've had in Pfizer. There's no question, Pfizer's gone through some layoffs, but I'm proud to say that all 10 of them were not impacted, and all 10 of them have gone on to expanding their careers, doing what we call zigzag careers, where they may have been in supply chain and now they're in quality, or they may be in operations. So I'm very proud. I get the chills just thinking about the success that we had. And I will say, when Pfizer commits to something, we go all in. So, for instance, we were one of the first companies to do a refugee return program. So we were successful there. So I knew that if we could be successful there, we could be successful here. So it's the commitment that Pfizer makes to everyone, not just a particular segment, but to everyone. And so that was our success.
Thank you, Lisa. Monty, you've been chartered with the mission to hire the best talent to enable Infoblox's growth and $2 billion, road to billion, as you call it. Where do you feel returners will fit into this hiring as you hire in the future?
Yeah, sure. So I'm pleased to say we're going to cross over the $1 billion annual recurring revenue mark here within the next couple of months. So I do need to update my LinkedIn profile. So our new motto is Road to 3 billion. So returners do play a major role in that. We have a returnship going on. We have 11 women, and predominantly all in technology roles at the organization. So it's been it's a pipeline for us that's been missed, right? Again, just talked about, there's a bias when there's a gap in the resume, both the recruiters and the hiring managers overlook because they think those skills disappear or they become outdated, right? So this first cohort, again, really sets the stage for being able to go out and market this program and open up the mindset of the recruiting team and the hiring managers to look for these opportunities. So I'm looking at, from a business perspective, it's a great pipeline for us that's honestly been missed for the last period of time. So it's an important part for us.
Tanya, Palo Alto Networks has been recognized as one of the best places to work for women. Why do you think it's important to create an environment where women feel seen and valued? And can you share a couple examples of how you've done that at PAN?
All right. I have to first say, essentially to really be able to be successful and do this right, it has to be not just intentional, it has to be genuine. And I think at Palo Alto Networks, all the way back to even the founding team, our current Chief Product and Technology Officer has been there since almost the inception of the company. His product all hands, which is company-wide, there have been some times when it's been all planned, all run by women. And I remember when I joined the company, it was one of those days, and I sat there and I was able to, it was such a treat to see all these phenomenal demos and presentations and everything run by the women. And I was like, yes, I belong here, right? So just that demonstration of the good work being done and the opportunity to show it was very important. Likewise, other leaders, the person I report to, who is very supportive of this organization and actually has spent a lot of time here, is very open about his respect for just women generally, but that he was brought up by very strong women, had very strong women around him. He is, provides equal opportunities, provides equal, applauds people who do things well. He's equally tough, no matter whether you're a woman or a man. And I actually appreciate that because it comes from a place of a lot of respect, right? So this is very foundational in the company. And unless you have senior leaders and allies who are demonstrating it, it becomes a little harder. We have a lot of senior women leaders. Our Chief Information Officer, just phenomenal. She's a powerhouse, very bright, strong, and an amazing leader to learn from. And then also the company does what I'd call more formal programs where we have a matching between mentors and mentees. Our VP of Competitive Intelligence, who's on my team, I've heard from so many of the other kind of earlier in career product management women and others who've said they've just loved being her mentee. She's a phenomenal mentor. They get so much advice and good direction from her, so on. So having those kinds of things fundamentally help, but I think those official mechanisms only work so well if it is genuine and intentional and kind of part of the company fabric. And it's great to see that the company is getting recognized externally as well as being a great place for women to work. And I will say yes, absolutely. I won't say it's easy, but nothing is easy. We aren't looking for easy, are we? So being able to be in a situation where it's equally hard for you as it is for everyone else is actually very nice.
My next question is for all of you. When your teams hire at your companies, when you hire, it's obvious that you're going to look for certain skills that people can do that job. That's really important. That goes without saying. But what are the other qualities that are important to your organizations, ones that make a candidate or a returner in this case stand out? In other words, how can our returners prepare themselves for the corporate world? And Monty, you want to get us started?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. I think a couple things come to mind with that. So again, with a gap in the resume, you really have to demonstrate there's a stigma bias that you've lost your technology skills. So you have to demonstrate how quick you can get up to speed. So that may be a previous project or something you worked on, how you're going to be able to get up to speed again with the technology. Second is really emphasizing the impact that you've made at previous experiences. When I interview and recruit, I'm looking for what did you bring to the organization? What impact did you have on it? We just finished up our summer internship program, and all of our interns were presenting on AI. And almost all of them said they got up to speed by using AI. And that's how they learned the technology. So AI, some way, some shape, has to be in your vocabulary when you're discussing new opportunities with organizations.
So I'd say plus one to that, Monty. I do think we live in a very competitive part of the country. And technology is just changing so fast. And to be relevant in the job market, it's really important to keep abreast of the changes and demonstrate when you are entering the workforce that you are capable of dealing with this rapidly changing technical environment, and basically go deep as you can to maybe understand what this new job is going to involve in terms of whether it's a AI-focused job or not. But regardless, I think going deep in understanding the technology, that the field that you're entering, and making yourself as competitive as the next person. So that's never a question. And so I think going deep, but also demonstrating that you have not just the hard skills, but also the relevant soft skills that are needed, because you do need to also demonstrate, you have to be confident, internally confident that you can enter the workforce, that you're on par with whoever else is entering. And so what does it take to do that? How can you be confident? And for me personally, I find when I know my stuff, that's when can put my best foot forward. And having allies, doing mock interviews, getting ready, preparing yourself, prepare is what I would say when you're trying to enter something new, net new. It's going to not be easy, and it's going to be uncomfortable. But how do you take that on? I think that's really important.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just double down on a couple of these comments. One, on inner confidence. I cannot explain how important that is, because it comes through when you're in a conversation. And I think the ability to take, when you are actually on a break or however you want to call it, you have the opportunity to set aside some time to really go deep, which maybe others in the field who are on a treadmill of their daily job are not able to. So if you're able to demonstrate that you actually put in some kind of an effort, whatever it was, whether it was a course, whether it was a project, whether it was something that you took the initiative to get done, that comes through not just as the motivation that you have, but having done it gives you the confidence when you're in those conversations, right? So I think that is very important. I will say something slightly different maybe on one of the points you made about being at par. I sometimes wouldn't worry too much about it because you do not know who else is in that interview group and who else you are, quote unquote, competing against, right? And every role is different, every team is different. You're always looking for a different skill set. Sometimes, there's a lot of extremely deeply technical people. You want someone who's got breadth and, is able to bring a perspective that's actually a little bit removed from the problem. So there are various scenarios where you may not be competing at exactly the same level with everyone else. So being honest about who you are, what you would bring to the table, and why you would be a good addition. It may be a fit, it may not be a fit. If it's not a fit, it may actually be good for you too. You don't necessarily want to be in a situation where you've said you can do something when you don't feel confident about it, right? So I suppose it will just take time and effort and persistence and perseverance and all those things that I think are just par for course. But being prepared, spending some time to take the opportunity you have and make sure that you're going deep somewhere and showing your energy and passion would be a very good idea.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone has said, but in particular, I think that coming to the interview prepared is so essential. I've heard from our hiring managers how so many of the returners came and they knew their stuff. Even though they'd been out of the marketplace, they knew the job, they'd done the research, they could talk about how they would add value, right? So when you're in these interviews, it's important to, one, own your break. It happened. There's nothing to be ashamed of. But owning the fact that, yes, you took a break, but that doesn't mean that you're less than, right? And so when you go into the conversation talking about the fact that you know who Pfizer is, you know what we do, you know the job because you've done the research, and you have an opportunity to say, and here's what I bring to the table. Because so many times people who are actually in the job, doing the job, they come in and they're like, yeah, I can do this job. I'm doing it right now. Okay, well, that's nice. But someone who comes to the table and really talks about their passion and why they want the job and why they're the best person for the job. Wow, I can just see all these heads nodding, right? That resonates with people, with a hiring manager. So definitely come prepared. Know your stuff, know the company, know the position, and speak from a place of passion.
Sonali, my next question is to you. I have seen the trajectory of your career, and you've pivoted, you've adapted, you moved into leadership position. What is your message for many of our returners that are coming back to work but are aspiring to become leaders? Is there a message that you share? And Tanya, you could also please share your insights on this.
Well, let's see. I think to begin with, I would say, oh, the mic. For the question is for people who are aspiring to
be in
enter
leadership,
right? Let me just start
or work
with,
their way to the leadership role.
Yeah, let me just start with saying that how we step into the workforce, every role or every level, there's an element of leadership. How do you lead, even as someone who's not in a leadership position as such, makes a difference, and it does show. So believing that you can lead, that's the genesis of how that self-belief that you are good, you are going to do a good job, you can lead, you want to drive. Whatever you're doing it with intent, right? To add value and to the team, to the business, not just yourself. So I find that leadership comes in many flavors. So the one thing I would say is everyone's a leader. So with that set aside, how to grow into leadership, I think there are many elements to it. One is to always aspire to learn and do more and continue to add value, to get seen, but also to network tremendously within the company, because sometimes when we're in our own silo, you don't see the big picture, you don't see what others are doing, you don't get feedback. And feedback is kind of a huge element in knowing, how you're doing or how you could do better. So having mentors early in your career is important. And then as you progress, they become allies and sponsors. And I think growing in leadership through not only just your work and being focused on doing a good job, which is fundamental, which is needed, but also asserting yourself on your team to show your work, to be seen, to be confident. And that comes with time and experience, but a lot of self-belief as well. So for me, every time I hit a turn that was, I had to sit and think, is this where I want to go, or is it a dead end? You talk to someone, you look to see what else is going on in the company. So just being aware, having friends, having allies is important, and not being afraid to make a change. I've made lateral changes when I felt that there doesn't seem to be an upward opportunity in this particular role that I'm in. I've actually changed my trajectory, my path. I started in communications, but today I'm in operations. So just going with what you think and believe is the right moment for you, right opportunity for you, and having a network of people who can support you and sponsor you. So I would say that's been very instrumental for me personally.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add, interestingly, I just had a similar conversation with one of my girlfriends. We both went to undergrad together, and we've had a long set of discussions over time, and we have very different approaches. Her approach is very straight. She knows exactly what she wants. She has a target, and she's working towards it. She has a 5-year plan, 10-year plan, all kinds of things, right? My approach has been extremely different from her approach, so there are very different approaches. I actually take a look at where am I now. I look at my surroundings, I look at the situation I'm in, and I keep fine-tuning my decisions or based on my scenario. So we've had very different paths. I'd say, just to give you a little bit of context around my approach or how it worked out for me, I don't think I was extremely intentional about it. It was who I am and how it evolved. I would take a look at the position I was in. What do I like about it? What do I not really love about it? What are the roles that are related to it that, often there are multiple paths you can take from where you are. I'd evaluate them and say, yeah, this one seems like it's good. I'd try to figure out, talk to people about it, understand it a little better, make career choices, not just the company, the industry, the actual function. And by doing that, I was able to, what I call, have a breadth of experience. So I did have a lot of lateral moves, especially earlier on in my career, that helped to get a lot of breadth and experience, be able to sit in other people's shoes when you have to work with them cross-functionally and so on. And it allowed me to be a little more open to opportunities when they arose. If I was very, direct and knew exactly what I wanted to go, I might have had blind spots on my sides and not noticed opportunities when they opened up. So I think so there's benefits in both ways. Sometimes I wish I could have known exactly what I wanted and just gone for it. But then on the flip side, I might have not noticed something when it was available. So I think you have to pick the approach that's true to who you are. It's very hard for you to do something by someone else's way. And from my perspective, I think being open gives you a lot more choice and opportunity. Having a direct path maybe helps you to stay focused and drive to make it happen, right? There's very different approaches.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. You both talked about allies, and Monty, how can women enlist men as allies? That question was going to come. Both at home.
I think we're out of time.
Also at work, but both, but at home too.
Another vulnerable moment here. My wife does 5 times as much as I do at home. So I think innately a lot of that home responsibility does fall upon the woman. But what I will say that she does really well. She, like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, right? So, you have to be very prescriptive on what you need help with. I can't be I need more help around the house. It doesn't register, but you give them specific things, exactly what you need them to do, right? It's kind of like an instruction manual.
Helps at work too.
At work, I've had the opportunity to be a ally, and how that came about was they asked me. They just point out blank asked me. I'd never been an ally before. I absolutely volunteered to do it. I think that's so you just got to have the courage to ask, find the right person, and then be prescriptive what it looks like. Is it just an ally in a situational? Maybe it's a meeting you're come up to, maybe it's a recurring meeting, or it's just in general or you need mentorship. So find the courage to ask somebody, seek them out and ask them and tell them what it looks like.
Lisa, you've been working with diversity and inclusion for a very long time. What makes you very optimistic about the future of inclusive hiring, both at Pfizer but in the world as well?
I believe that for a long time, diversity, particularly diversity hiring, was the exception. And throughout the years, and even now, I believe it's no longer the exception, it's more of the norm, right? But we had to go through some growing pains to understand that it's okay to hire diverse talent and why it's okay. And we've now come to a place where it's more of the norm. So it's not the exception, it's the norm. But it's still important to make certain that, again, going back to we have natural biases. And so making certain that if we see if we see hiring managers kind of going down a path repetitively, that we gently nudge them, remind them that, listen, we are an inclusive culture. And part of that means looking at people that don't look like you, sound like you, come from where you are. So I continue to be very hopeful that we will continue to hire diverse talent. And even though, we are under a different, we're in a different place, diversity doesn't have to be said. It simply just is. And I'm thankful that people are realizing the importance of it, so it doesn't need to be hammered into their head. It is.
We have about 8 to 10 minutes left, so a piece of advice that you have for our returners, each of you. Lisa, we can get started with you.
My advice is own who you are. Really take ownership of who you are. Sometimes we feel like, well, we're the exception. Well, yeah, we are the exception because we are exceptional. However, if you go into the space thinking that you're the exception, sometimes that creates a negative mindset. So go in owning who you are, what you've done, what you bring to the table. I tell people often, I know what you do and I know how you do it, but tell me why you do it. Why do you want this job? And let that come through. Don't be shy about that. Speak about your accomplishments, what you've done. Also talk about what you haven't done and say what you're excited about doing, right? So you don't have to come to the table checking the box 100%. The important thing is getting a seat at the table and talking about what it is that you'd like to do.
Yeah, I would say that everyone is here because as part of this group, is because they want to get back into the workforce. And that in and of itself is they've experienced a gap, and you've experienced a gap, and you want to come in it takes a lot of courage to, it's daunting to get in there. So overcoming your anxiety, your fear, and knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable, that self-knowledge will help you navigate. So not being intimidated by it, but sort of embracing it, that yes, I'm coming in, and developing that confidence along the way, that yes, I am capable, I have these skills, I've done my work, and I'm here to, and guess what? Because of the way the nature of this industry is, a lot of people go in and out of work. So really, you are not the exception. So you should not feel less in any way. Many, many, many people, because of the way the business has been recently, in the recent years, people do get out of work, right? So you do need to get back in. So just having that confidence that, yep, I'm going to get back and get back in is I think, the best thing that you could do for yourself. Don't feel intimidated, and do your work. Do the deep work, do the research, do the homework, and all of that. But that innate confidence, just have it. Walk in as you own it, and that you belong, and that you're not, being out of work is fine. There are a lot of people who are out of work who get back into work. So that's what I would say.
All right, my turn. I'd say stay positive.
Yeah, optimistic.
Very optimistic and positive, because what you're experiencing is not uncommon. Nobody is putting up on Facebook or LinkedIn when they got a job offer declined, are they? So it's happening everywhere. It's not just you. And everyone who gets a job has had many, many rejections before they got one. So remember that. Stay positive. And, maybe I'll say something that Jensen Huang said. He said that those who've undergone some difficult experiences, who've had to struggle, are the better people and are able to deliver more, and the kind of people he wants in his company. I think many others want the same, right? So actually going through difficult times just makes you stronger, better, and own it, and stay confident and positive.
Not sure I have much more to add. I'll just reiterate, I think the confidence is very, very important. It shows up when you get that opportunity. As a recruiter, we do not want to see desperation, so stay positive, embrace your break in your career, own it and be proud of it, and just be able to display that confidence.
So, I heard own who you are. You said be confident of who you are. Stay positive, stay optimistic. Yes, it takes a lot of courage to overcome your anxieties, overcome the overwhelm that you face while you're trying to find a job. So really get comfortable with the uncomfortable. We're almost at time, but I think we have maybe time for 1 or 2 questions. We want to make this engaging, so lots of hands up, but maybe just a couple minutes for a question. We'll get you the mic. Right here.
Hi, thank you. So all the tips that all of you gave was great. It was more about getting to the interview or actually getting to the recruiting manager or talent person. My question is, there's a whole process that is there, applying on LinkedIn or actually applying for a job. And especially for people who are, with the gap that you mentioned. And a lot of times during this gap, and I don't know if you get deep and you get more aware of who you are and what you want to be. A lot of times it becomes a career transition, like if you were a chemical engineer who wants to now be a data analyst. So my question is, what would your advice be for someone who's doing a career transition who might not have an experience, but definitely has the confidence, the determination, and the willingness to do the job? What would it take to get to the table to actually have that conversation, to get to that interview?
That's a good question, and it's a very relevant question. So if I'm hearing you correctly, if you've been in one lane and you're now deciding you want to go into another lane, how do you speak to that and get the opportunity to actually have a conversation with someone?
Yes, I can give you my personal example. So my previous life, I was a service designer, which is more like a consultant and design strategy and research. I've had a 7 years of gap, and in my 7 years, I have recognized myself as an entrepreneur, as a community builder, and someone who's really interested in full stack product, like product expert. So the perfect industry or the department would be product management as a start. But that's not on my resume. So if I do look at a product manager role, I get all those rejections. So
Yeah, and maybe just, I'll take that because you're specifically talking about product management in
I'm
this
just
case,
giving an
right?
example, sorry.
So maybe I'll give you a couple suggestions. Will they work or no? Don't hold me to it. But I'll share some suggestions, right? So during your time off, what has allowed you to develop this perspective about yourself, right? What have you done, experienced that has allowed that to happen? Where and how are you going to communicate that? You will have to put it on LinkedIn in some way, shape, or form, right? You will have to be able to put it on a resume in some way, shape, or form. So what are you speaking to? Is there, even if it was a personal product that you developed for yourself, what was that journey? How did you go about it? How did you think through the problem? How did you then come up with a solution? How did you take that thought process and deliver on an outcome, right? Describing it is already going to be very powerful, and being able to describe that in places where people can see it. Because if you've had a 7-year gap, it's going to be difficult for someone to know, unless you have shared it somewhere, that you may be right for some role. So that's something. You have to put it out there, think through how you will describe it, and describe it in public. It has to be available in a search in some way, shape, or form. And second, you are, I believe, going to have to be willing to take what I might call a boomerang kind of a role. It may feel like someone that, oh, you were in a much higher position before in this job, and now you're taking something that's kind of like a, early in career product management role. But think of it as a boomerang opportunity. And what that means is, yes, it may look like it's a little quote unquote backwards, but that then allows you to swing forward more quickly in a different role, right? So maybe you have to be a little bit more open to the kinds of roles you're looking for, be open about it to recruiters and others that you're reaching out to, and figure out a way to publicly share why you believe you are right for product management.
All right, we're right on time, and we have a break coming up. But first, a big round of applause for our panelists here. Thank you for the wisdom and the insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Thank you.